Oh my god, it's video games. We are back again to talk about video games. And today we're going to be going through rare and expensive games in my collection. Now, before we even get into this, I want to lead by saying hey, this is not like a video for me to brag about, look what I have or anything like that. This is something I thought would just be kind of fun. And I was actually inspired by Scott the Waz's video on this exact same topic. And I was also kind of inspired by a recent encounter I had at a convention where I saw a game that I have that it was going for quite a lot of money, way more than what I paid for it. So it got me curious about, okay, well, what are some of the more rare and expensive games in my collection? As you know, I've been collecting for 15 plus years at this point. And I'm not really out there on price charting, keeping track of what everything's worth. I mean, there are definitely some stuff in my collection that I can pretty easily tell you is worth quite a bit of money. But aside from the obvious, I figured it'd be kind of fun to go through and just see what is some of my more rare and expensive stuff here. So yeah, let's kind of just get right into it. First and foremost, I'm not even going to take it off the shelf, mainly because it's kind of helping prop up all these games right here, but it's Earthbound. Earthbound is my favorite game of all time. I have it here, complete in box, so that is very easily the most expensive game I own. But I want to say, I didn't get it like that. I pieced it together over a handful of years. I can remember I was in 9th grade when I got my physical copy of it, and I had saved up all of my holiday money for Christmas, and bought that copy for $214 at the time. And then a handful of years later, actually it was just a couple of years ago, I was able to get a box through a collector's group. Thank you to the person who sold me it. You know who you are. I was able to get a decent price on that, only had to spend a couple $100 to get the box. And then by pure luck, my local shop happened to just get in a copy of the strategy guide. Now, my strategy guide it's very ratty, it's very beat up. There's actually a bend on the spine. It definitely looks like it was in a box and another box was stacked on top of it, and that box was heavier and kind of collapsed in on it. So it bent the spine, but it's still perfectly readable and usable, and it's ratty, but it's my copy and I love it. So when my shop got that in, guy posted about it on Facebook, and I immediately went down there and I was like, all right, I'm here for that Earthbound guidebook. And he was like, well, I don't usually do this, but this thing's in kind of rough condition. What do you want for it? And I was like, At the time, they were going for about $80 a pop. And I said, you know what? I'll take that guidebook for $80 if you throw in the equally ratty copy of the Ruby and Sapphire Pokemon strategy guide, please. And we had a deal. So that is kind of how I got my Earthbound all together. But yes, that is easily my most expensive game. All right, well, speaking of that game I saw at the convention, we have it right here. And that is none other than Nage Libre for the Super Famicom. Now, this is a game I've talked about on the channel here a couple of years ago, I think in an episode just called Random Super Famicom Games. But it's essentially a strategy tactical RPG where you play as a bunch of different schoolgirls and you go up against a bunch of other different schools, and it's fun. It's actually pretty good, and not even the biggest tactical RPG kind of guy, but I actually really enjoyed this one. I love the 90s anime art style, absolutely adore that. And then what really sold this one for me is the music. The music is really, really good in this one. I absolutely love it. So, at the time, it was 2020 when I reviewed this. It was very hard to come by a copy of this game, and as a matter of fact, the only reason I bought this complete in box is because this was the only copy on eBay at the time, and it was for all of $100. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to pay $100 for this. But I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and pick it up. And I kid you not, when I saw this game, card only, at Otakon, not only was I surprised that somebody else in the world owned a copy of this game besides me, but the cart only was going for $265. I was like, what? There's no way it's going for that much. Sure enough, looked it up. Boxed copies, complete boxed copies like this, $750 to $800. Holy crap. I cannot believe it is worth that much now. I bought this for, $100, complete box like this. And you know, I'm shocked that it's gone up so much in price. I don't know why it's gone up in price so much. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I don't know why it's gone up in price, but it's still quite hard to come by. So it is both rare and expensive. But yes, that is Nage Libre for the Super Famicom. Now, kind of keeping up with Nage Libre, we have a little PlayStation game here that, while it's not the most expensive, it is definitely kind of rare. So much so that when I found out about it a couple years ago, I had a really hard time even tracking down a ROM for it. And that is none other than Misaki Aggressive for the PlayStation 1. Now, much like Nage Libre, this is kind of a tactical RPG, and I mean, very almost so similar that I'm not even sure if it's not the same like art director or animation person, as these are very similar character designs. But it's very much just like Nage Libre, although it's far more story heavy. So it's a game I have not played a ton of, but it's one of those weirdo games I stumbled upon a couple of years ago and was fascinated by it in just like various different ways. I've never heard of this. This looks really interesting, and it's kind of doing the like early 2D, 3D thing with like 3D backgrounds and sprite-based characters on like a PS1, and I absolutely loved the art style. So it was a game I was kind of after for quite some time and just wasn't able to find any copies. At the time in 2020 when I found or heard about this, there were no copies at all on eBay. So this actually was a pretty recent addition to the collection. I looked it up here, I think about 2 months ago, and found about 4 or 5 copies on eBay and was finally able to scoop one up. And this one was about, I think this cost me about $40, though the other copies online were also going anywhere from about $30 to $100 to just over $100. So I guess it can get kind of expensive, but not like super expensive. But yes, that is Misaki Aggressive. Somewhat hard to find game, quite uncommon, not exactly super expensive. Now, to kind of quickly flip the script on this video, I'm going to talk about a game that I thought would be more expensive. And that game is actually Silent Hill 2 for the Xbox. Now, the reason I thought this was going to be more expensive is because on the PlayStation 2, copies of Silent Hill 2 definitely go for about $100, $120. They regularly go for over $100, which is crazy. Because this is a game that had a pretty big print run and had a greatest hits re-release. So if, hey, you're a huge Silent Hill fan and you want a physical copy, consider picking up the Xbox version, as this is only about $60 compared to, you know, the $100, $120 of the PlayStation 2 copies. And this one has improved graphics and lighting, and it has the Born From a Wish DLC on there. And all of that graphics and lighting stuff was then ported to the PlayStation 2's version of the Restless Dreams edition. And I picked this up for about $40, all of about 10 or 11 years ago. So it's kind of nice to see that this one hasn't gone up a ton in price since I picked this up. So yes, Silent Hill fans, if you need a physical copy of Silent Hill 2, go for the Xbox version. Now, back to rare and expensive games, but keeping with Silent Hill, we have Silent Hill 1 for the PlayStation. I was not aware of how expensive this game had got. It's pretty regularly going for about $200 to $230 for a complete copy just like this. Even disc only gets quite pricey. And that's crazy. But it also kind of makes sense, seeing that this game has not seen a re-release since it was put on the PlayStation 3 store all those years ago, and then that did not transfer over to the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 store, so it has not seen re-release since then. So, you know, the seminal classic original Silent Hill that is still pretty good. I think aesthetically the game holds up really well, especially since the world has kind of come back around on like, yo, low poly aesthetic is super cool and works really well for like crunchy old horror games. Love this game, though the controls are definitely kind of hit or miss. Those tank controls are not kind when you go back to them, but it can be adapted to, and this game is still an absolute must-play for survival horror fans. But yeah, I picked this up in high school, and I did not have the manual at the time. I actually had to get the manual separately. I was just disc and case, and it does have the back on it. But even at the time, it was kind of expensive. I think I paid about $50, $60. And, I was in high school, and that was high school money, so that was a lot of money. But looking at it now, I'm like, holy cow, I'm glad I picked it up then, because it is quite expensive now. Yeah, that is Silent Hill 1 for the PlayStation 1. Alright, we've got another little PlayStation 1 game here that I actually thought was going to be far more expensive. And that is Alien Resurrection. Now, my reasoning as to why I thought this was going to be more expensive is because I believe 2 or 3 years ago, someone on YouTube figured out that this was one of the few commercially sold games that could be used to like jailbreak and hack your original PS1 to play import games or copy games. And shortly after that video of theirs came out and went viral, I believe the price on this game had skyrocketed to like $300, $400. And I'm glad to report that it has come way back down since then at about $40, $50 for a copy, which is not bad considering I think I paid all of like $15 for this back in college, I think. But this is not a bad game, actually. It's a pretty good like action survival horror game, first-person shooter based on Alien Resurrection. It's probably better than the movie, although I do have a soft spot for the movie. I think it's kind of most infamous at this point for being one of the first console first-person shooters to use the dual-stick movement, and a lot of reviewers at the time clowned on the game for having like the dual-stick movement that you find in every and all modern first-person shooter. But yeah, Alien Resurrection, not a bad game. Nice little one to have in the collection. Hey, it's still kind of cheap. Consider picking this up if you like survival horror games, especially like late releases on the PlayStation 1, because this one looks really good, though this game is hard as nails. Alright, moving over to the Saturn, we have what is easily, I think, my third most expensive game in my collection, and it's another one that I just happened to pick up for cheap a long time ago. And that is Keriotosse. Now, you probably remember me talking about this on the channel not too long ago. And it's kind of a spin on the kind of like the Bomberman formula, more or less party game, where you and 4 other characters are basically in a ring, and you're trying to knock each other out of the ring in various ways and shapes and forms. It's a really, really fun little party game that is perfect to just kind of pick up and play with friends. And when I did the review on this game and got to the price checking point of my review, I was shocked to see how much it is going for. So I picked this up in I think 2015 for all of, it was either $47 or like $67. I'm leaning more towards $67. This thing now goes for $350 plus on eBay, and I'm like, oh my god, that's disgusting. This is such a fun little game. It's such a shame that it now goes for so much money, and I can't believe that. But yes, Keriotosse for the Sega Saturn has unfortunately fallen into the pit trap of most Saturn games now, and is now incredibly expensive. I highly recommend picking up a copy game or a reproduction version of this, or just emulating it. It's such a fun little game. Alright, keeping up the Saturn, we have something that's far less expensive than Keriotosse, but also still kind of rare, and that is Bulk Slash. Now, Bulk Slash is a really awesome, like, fully, or 3D, like, shoot 'em up, mech action game, and it's really, really cool because not only can you, like, get in your mech and fight stuff on the ground, but you can turn into a jet and, dogfight in the air. It's really, really awesome. It's gorgeous. It looks great in 3D on the Saturn. It's definitely one of those kind of like technical showcases of the time. And you have all of these different pilots you can rescue and use throughout, and they're all voiced by, different characters. And it's just a gorgeous, awesome little game. And funny story with this one, I picked this one up right as I got into... No, this was right before college, so I got my first debit card because I was going off to college. And it was like shortly after I got it, I was like, hey, I could buy stuff off eBay now. And I immediately went and bought myself a copy of Bulk Slash, and I got this for all of $80 at the time, which It is not horrible, especially since this is like one of the, Sega Saturn kind of greatest hits collections here. It's got the alternate cover. But even so, the kind of the two other cover variants aren't all that more expensive, but this was the cheaper option at the time. So I got this for about $80, and it now goes for about $115 to $160. So not the most expensive game out there, but this is one. Yeah, like I said, I picked it up. It was one of the first things I bought with my new debit card at the time, and I remember my dad being like, "Hey, did you buy something on eBay?" And I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, try not to do that too much. You need this money for college. And I was like, yeah, yes, sir. But I had to have Bulk Slash because, at the time, Saturn emulation wasn't the greatest. It wasn't as stable as it was now, and trying to just get any game to run in most Saturn emulators was kind of iffy. So it was much easier to just actually collect the games and play them that way. And I was so glad to finally get my hands on this game because it's really, really awesome. But like I said, this game's kind of expensive. There are some good workarounds, and I highly recommend getting a copy version of the awesome fan translation that was done a couple of years ago, because not only did they translate the whole game, but because you have all of these different pilots that talk to you and give you directions during these missions, they actually fan dubbed the fan translation, which is incredibly cool. So I highly recommend going out and checking that out, as it does make this game a little bit easier, but you could totally play this in Japanese without, the voiceover, or without, the translated voiceovers and whatnot, and get through it. I've played through this game a handful of times. But, if you don't want to pay high-end prices for an actual copy, definitely pick up the reproduction. It's really, really awesome. It's a great labor of love by fans and the Saturn community. So yeah, that's Bulk Slash. And we're going to move over here to the very last game I have for this. And it is none other than one I talked about way, way long ago on the channel. Melfand Stories for the Super Famicom. Now this right here was a game that I feel like it was one of the first reviews that really put this channel on the map, as it was the first review that I put up where people like Jimmy Hoppa, SNES Drunk, and Kid Shoryuken were all like, oh wow, we're glad somebody's finally covered this, or wow, I've never even heard of this game before. Good find. And it kind of got me recognition from bigger channels, and I'm still friends with a lot of these people to this day, which is really awesome. But yeah, Melfand Stories kind of holds a special place for me, and when I reviewed this game, it was going for all of $40, at least this copy was, and it was about $40, $50, kind of uncommon, still quite uncommon, but now this game goes for $140, $150 just cart alone, and I can't believe that. And I also feel somewhat bad because I feel like I'm partially responsible for this game going up in price. Not to say my review did huge gangbuster numbers, it really didn't. It's done 3,000 or 4,000, but that's big on this channel, and considering it was the only review of this game on YouTube at the time, I feel like it kind of bumped up the price. But maybe that's not true at all. Maybe other factors played into that. But Melfand Stories is an awesome little side-scrolling, I don't know, I would call it sweet 'em up, hack and slash game. Really, really awesome. There's so many different ways to play through the game. There's 4 different routes, and you have 4 different characters, and you can kind of mix and match and figure out which character is best for each route. Go check out my review on this game. Trust me, it's lovingly made. I go into every little detail that there is to know about this game and just how awesome it is. But yeah, Melfand Stories is such a great little game. I'm shocked that it goes for so much money now. Again, this is one of those ones where I feel like I just picked it up at just the right time before it got really, really expensive. God forbid you want a boxed copy, because that thing's $800 to $900. But yeah, that's Melfand Stories, and that's gonna do it for this episode on rare and expensive games in my collection. I hope you all enjoyed this. I think this is pretty fun to do. I definitely have some other games in my collection here that are kind of rare and expensive, so I could probably do a follow-up to this, but please let me know what some of your rare and expensive games are. I would love to know. Anyways, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this episode, consider checking out these other videos right here, or even subscribing. Also, if you'd like to throw me a couple of bucks, you can support the show on Patreon.